So I've been gone for a while. I might address this at some stage. It's nothing personal. Just had a lot of additional nonsense going on, and quite frankly, my mind has been, I don't know, just in a survival mode for the past 11 weeks. So I'm going to devote a podcast to that at some stage, but I wanted to record on a bunch of topics, and it'll come out in some part of the natural trajectory. My wife wanted to go back to Westchester. If you may recall, I went on a road trip with my wife, and on the way back, my mother-in-law, and we crossed the US in order to end up in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Now, this trip was the conclusion. It wasn't intended to be the conclusion, but it was the end of a particular podcast called Attic Aficionados with the original host. Obviously, Connor Seitz-Bowen continued on, but Attic Aficionados was initially me and another gentleman. And the strange thing about going back to Westchester is I really haven't had any correspondence with the other gentleman. Now, I do have a couple of people that are still in communication with the fellow that I used to record the podcast with. And what's interesting is one of them comes to a games night that I hold at work. Normally once a month. It's been a little slow of late, and it's going to be incredibly slow with my trips that are coming up. In any case. So I had an opportunity to chat with the gentleman who still remains friends with the fellow in Westchester, just to say, hey, look, my wife wants to go on a road trip back to Westchester, and this whole thing is very bizarre. Like, I recorded a podcast for 9 months, haven't really had any correspondence, like literally no correspondence since before the end of last year. Sent a few emails, did a few niceties, just, seeing how things were going, haven't received any response. Whole thing's rather strange. The people I've talked to about this, normally the two friends that are still in contact with him, present a series of very curious non sequiturs which seem to indicate very clearly that this gentleman has a story that he's been selling to others that doesn't really have anything to do with my thing. So it all seems very, very, very strange. Has very little to do with anything that I have anything to do with. Just getting on with it. I honestly don't know what's going to happen with Attic Aficionados, and quite frankly, I think if Connor Seitz-Bowen and I do something, it's going to be something different going forward. Let's hold this thing together for as long as possible with Attic Aficionados, that was okay. But really the podcast is over, and now I have circumstances where people are contacting me on YouTube and all this other stuff, thinking that Attic Aficionados is still an ongoing thing, and I just have to say to them, no, it's not. So that's where it is. And honestly, we picked up a few listeners. I mean, a small number of listeners that listened to this thing came from Attic Aficionados, but that was that. In addition to this, 3 months ago now? Maybe 2 months ago? No, it has to be at least 3 months ago. I had a long-standing friend of mine come over from Australia. He had stayed with us previously. That was reasonable, previously. But this last trip was just out of control. And that was the conclusion of that friendship as well. So I have a sense that these things happen in threes, that maybe there are 3 of these things that happen, and I'm just waiting for the third one to occur. And by chance, Bruce Damer got back in contact with me. Now, I would think Attic Aficionados, this fellow from Australia, these are all failed collaborations, and Bruce Damer certainly follows the pattern of failed collaborations as well, particularly the ongoing me maintaining things and Bruce not actually contributing anything back. And the way that holds itself out currently is with regards to Biota. I still donate to Biota. I donate about $2,600 a year to Biota. So a reasonable chunk of change that I give each year to maintain Biota and a variety of other things. And Bruce is turning this thing into something different. He's calling it the Biota Institute. I'm not really clear what it is, but it seems to be some vessel for David Deemer and Bruce to do other stuff. It's got nothing to do with the history of Biota. The Biota podcast, all this other stuff, really has got nothing to do with what Bruce wants to do with Biota going forward. So Bruce has been putting out a prospectus associated with this new thing, and it's got a bunch of institutional names on it, and his name and David Deemer's name, but none of these folks are actually contributing money to Biota. I'm the only one contributing money to Biota, which Bruce has told me quite candidly. So having had a conversation with Bruce and just a sense that this Biota thing is over, this new Biota thing that Bruce is doing is completely different, I thought to myself, why isn't my name on the prospectus? I'm still donating money to this thing and will continue to by the looks of things. So I should be on the prospectus. I should be top of the prospectus, like a gold level sponsor of this new venture, because that's what I'm doing. I'm a gold level sponsor of this new venture. None of these institutions, none of these people, no one's putting in money except for me. So I put this back to Bruce, and then there was a silence of a couple of days, and I thought, well, this is the third shoe that drops, right? This thing in Westchester, former friend in Australia, now Bruce Damer, we're getting these things evened out, right? Just part of the narrative associated with disproportional, work and these people just treating me like dirt. So, in the process of this, Bruce got back in contact with me, and he agreed with me. He's not going to collect money from these other entities, he's not going to do a bunch of things, but he's going to put my name on the prospectus. A nice little paragraph that explains who I am and my work with Noble Ape and my legacy work with Biota. I thought to myself, you shouldn't be in the habit of just assuming bad behaviors. Sometimes these things will change. And that, for me, has been very powerful in resetting my views that, although I'm changing a lot of things, in particular moving to a more insular format for a variety of things that I do, you've just got to hold out hope that occasionally some people might behave at the 11th hour with a degree of intrinsic respect. And that was somewhat good, right? Change my general perspective on things. Maybe realize that maybe things that appear to be hopeless aren't always hopeless. And that is the emotion I wanted to leave you with in this recording.